After my father's funeral, my stepbrother told me our house was transferred to his name a week before he died. He said, he didn't want to leave it to someone soft like you. I stayed quiet until I found the recorded call my father made to his lawyer days before he passed. When I took it to probate court, I didn't cry at my dad's funeral. Not because I wasn't sad, but because by the time we put him in the ground, I had nothing left in me. I'd already cried through the worst of it. Watching him fade away day by day, turning from a proud, stubborn man into someone who needed help just to sit up in bed. I did that. I was there for every part of it. And now he was gone, and I felt like I died a little too. After the service, people came back to the house. Everyone called it the house, but to me it was our house. It was where I grew up, where I spent almost every Christmas, where I helped repaint the siding when I was 17, and where I spent the last 6 months helping Dad live out his final days with some kind of dignity. He wanted to die at home. I made that happen. No one else. Certainly not Paul. Paul showed up late to the funeral. Showed up loud, like always. Slapped a few backs, made a couple of inappropriate jokes, tried to hug me like we were long-lost brothers. We're not. He moved in when we were 12. His mom married my dad after my mom passed from stroke. At the time, I wanted to be friends with Paul. He made it clear from day one he wasn't interested. From the jump, he treated me like I was in his way. And Dad didn't stop him. If anything, he kind of let him take over. Paul was the golden boy. Played football, got drunk with Dad when he turned 18, borrowed his car without asking. I was the quiet one, the soft one, the one who actually followed rules. Maybe too much. Maybe that's what they saw as weak. I stayed after high school, helped around the house, paid rent, got a job at the local print shop, and never really left Dallas. When Dad's health started going downhill, I didn't even think twice. I moved back in full-time, quit my job, drained my savings. I became his nurse, his cook, his driver. Paul came by twice that entire year. Once to ask about money, once because he thought Dad was already dead and wanted to see what he could get. So when he pulled me aside in the driveway after the funeral and told me he now owned the house, I felt like the ground had shifted under me. Dad signed it over last week, he said, chewing that stupid toothpick like it made him some kind of cowboy. Said, he didn't want to leave it to someone soft like you. I just stared at him. I didn't even respond. My whole world had just ended, and now he was kicking the ashes. But I didn't argue. Not then. Not there. I just nodded and walked back inside. That night, I barely slept. The idea of Paul owning the house made me sick. I pulled up the county's property records the next morning. He wasn't lying. The deed had been signed and notarized 6 days before Dad died. That didn't make sense. Dad was barely conscious by then. He could barely form a sentence. And more than once, when he was clear, he told me the house was mine. He'd said it straight. You've done everything, Evan. Paul doesn't deserve it. So what happened? For weeks, I didn't know what to do. I stayed in the house, but I felt like a guest. Paul started showing up with keys, letting himself in, walking around like he owned the place. One time, he brought a real estate agent over, without telling me. Said he was exploring his options. That same night, he left me a note on the kitchen table telling me I had 60 days to move out. That's when I started digging. I pulled every file out of Dad's desk, every envelope, every drawer. And then I found it. Taped underneath the top drawer was a USB stick. Nothing labeled on it, just a plain drive. I plugged it in and found 2 audio files. The first was a recorded phone call between my dad and his lawyer, dated 3 days before he passed. I need to make sure the house goes to my son, Evan, Dad said. His voice was rough but clear. Not Paul. Paul's not stable. I'm worried what he'd do with it. The lawyer responded, you already filed the transfer documents. Are you sure you want to reverse it? Yes, Dad said. I want Evan to have it. He's earned it. The second file was a voicemail. It was the lawyer's assistant confirming an appointment to reverse the deed, scheduled for the following morning. Dad died the night before. I sat there at his desk with tears in my eyes, listening to it over and over. He tried to fix it. He knew he made a mistake, but he didn't live long enough to undo it. And Paul? Paul must have pushed him into it when he was too weak to say no. Manipulated him. Took advantage of a dying man. I took the recordings to a lawyer. She listened and nodded slowly. "You've got something," she said. "You can challenge this." We filed a petition with the probate court. The claim was simple: undue influence, mental incapacity, and intent to reverse that was never completed due to death. When Paul got served with the court papers, he sent me a text that said, "You're wasting your time. You never had the guts to stand up for yourself." But I wasn't scared anymore. I'd taken care of my father when no one else did. I had nothing left to lose. And I was ready to fight. Paul didn't waste any time retaliating. 3 days after he was served, I came home from running errands and found the locks changed. My key didn't work. The garage code was disabled. I stood there on the porch, holding 2 bags of groceries, just staring at the door like maybe it would unlock itself if I waited long enough. Then I heard laughter from inside. I knocked hard. No answer. I knocked again. Paul opened the door halfway, leaned against the frame, smirking. "Didn't you get the message? You don't live here anymore." I stared at him. "You can't lock me out. I'm contesting the transfer. This is still under review." He shrugged. "As far as the county sees it, I'm the owner. You're trespassing." I could have called the cops right then. I should have. But part of me didn't want to escalate it like that. I left. Drove to a friend's place and slept on their couch that night, sick to my stomach. The next morning, I called my lawyer. She was furious. "This is retaliatory behavior. We'll file for a temporary injunction to prevent him from selling or altering the property until the case is decided." But court takes time. And Paul knew that. Over the next few weeks, he went to work doing exactly what you'd expect from someone who's scared of getting caught. He tried to make me look like a liar. He started telling our relatives that I was making up stories about Dad being drugged and confused, that I'd always been jealous, that I was trying to steal the house out from under him. I heard it all through the grapevine. One of our cousins even called to tell me I should be ashamed of myself for dragging the family through court. I wanted to scream. These people hadn't shown up for Dad in years, and now they were lecturing me? Paul even tried to make a case that I'd financially manipulated Dad toward the end. Claimed I had access to his bank accounts, that maybe I'd taken some money for myself. It wasn't just a low blow, it was dangerous. If he got someone to believe it, I could be in legal trouble. So I started collecting everything. Bank statements, caregiver logs, texts between me and Dad, emails, even receipts from grocery runs. I printed it all out, organized it into binders, and brought it to my lawyer. "He's going to spin this," I told her. "So, we need to bury him in facts." Meanwhile, Paul was already trying to sell the house. I found the listing online. Photos of the living room, my old bedroom, even the garden I helped plant when I was 10. Listed as a motivated seller. Quick, close, possible. I wanted to puke. We filed the injunction just in time. A judge granted a freeze on the sale. Paul wasn't allowed to make any financial changes to the property until the court ruled. That's when he started showing up at my friend's place. Once, I saw his truck parked down the block. Another time, he left a note under the windshield of my car. "You're going to lose. Just walk away." But I didn't. I dug in. I met with a forensic handwriting expert to analyze the deed Dad had signed. We discovered something interesting. Dad's signature on the transfer looked shaky, inconsistent with other documents he signed that same month. The expert was willing to testify that it looked like he wasn't in a sound mental state, possibly under duress. It was all coming together. I had the call recording. The expert. The medical records showing Dad was heavily medicated and disoriented in his final week. But Paul still had his smug little army of relatives and family friends, all convinced I was just a bitter, broke son trying to cash in. Then came the court date. I walked into that courtroom with my binder in hand, my lawyer at my side, and my heart pounding like I was about to go to war. Because I was. And I was done being soft. The courtroom smelled like old carpet and dust. I sat at the plaintiff's table, watching Paul from across the room. He looked relaxed, like he was confident it would all go his way. He had his arms crossed, whispering jokes to his attorney, like we were just playing some kind of game. But I wasn't playing. My lawyer presented everything: recordings, bank records, care logs, even the voicemail from the lawyer's assistant. The forensic handwriting expert took the stand and calmly explained how Dad's signature was inconsistent with his typical motor control. He said it likely came from someone who was medically impaired and cognitively compromised. Paul didn't flinch. Then he took the stand. He told the court I had always been a leech, that I lived off Dad and never worked a day in my life. He said Dad only kept me around because he felt sorry for me, and that I made up the story about the house to get back at him for being successful. The judge asked him why he thought Dad tried to reverse the deed days before his death. Paul's answer: he didn't. That call was fake. That's when everything changed. My lawyer had already subpoenaed the lawyer Dad called, the one in the recording. He took the stand next and confirmed that the call was real. That Dad had tried to reverse the transfer. That he never made it to the final appointment because he died the night before. But then came the twist I wasn't ready for. During cross-examination, Paul's own attorney let something slip. She said, "It's not like Paul forged the signature. He was just helping his father when he was too weak to lift the pen." The room went dead quiet. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me?" he asked. She tried to walk it back, but the damage was done. My lawyer jumped on it. "So we filed a motion to examine the notary records tied to the deed transfer. We wanted to speak with the notary who witnessed Dad's signature." Here's where it got really bad for Paul. The listed notary didn't work at the law office, he claimed. In fact, she had been dead for 2 years. Paul had used an old name off some archived paperwork and forged the notary stamp. Once that came out, everything unraveled fast. Forgery, fraud, possible criminal charges. But there was more. During discovery, we got access to Paul's emails. He'd been emailing a real estate investor in Houston before Dad even died, offering to sell the house as soon as the old man is gone. The date on that email was 5 days before Dad's death. 5 days before the deed was even officially recorded. He didn't just manipulate Dad. He planned it all, step by step. And I wasn't the only one who saw it now. Even the judge started questioning why this hadn't gone to criminal court already. The relatives who'd called me greedy? They went quiet. One of them even called me afterward and apologized. "I didn't know," she said. "I just assumed." But assumptions don't hold up in court. Facts do. And I had all of them. The judge took 2 weeks to issue the ruling. Those 2 weeks felt like I was holding my breath underwater, waiting to come up for air. I barely slept. I kept checking the court portal like some miracle would show up early. When the decision finally posted, I read every word twice. The transfer was nullified. The court ruled that the deed was signed under undue influence during a period when my father lacked legal capacity. The notary stamp was declared fraudulent. The house, my home, was ordered to return to the estate and pass through probate as my father had intended. And Paul? The judge referred his case to the district attorney's office for investigation. Forgery, fraud, attempted theft of property. He could face felony charges. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I just sat in my car outside the courthouse and cried. Not out of sadness, just release. I had been holding so much in for so long, trying to carry the weight of my father's legacy on my back while someone who never earned it tried to rip it away from me. That wasn't the end, though. A month later, Paul was arrested. Turns out he had a pattern. This wasn't his first time skimming property deals from sick relatives. He had pulled something similar with an aunt in Houston years earlier. She had dementia. He helped her update her will. The family never pressed charges because they didn't want the drama. This time, he didn't get that option. His lawyer tried to get a plea deal, but the DA wanted to make an example. In the end, Paul pled guilty to 2 felonies, fraud and forgery, and was sentenced to 2 years in state prison. Not a long time, but long enough. Long enough to lose his job. Long enough to scare off his latest girlfriend. Long enough for the word to get around. I didn't go to his sentencing. I didn't need to see his face again. Instead, I stayed home, the same home he tried to steal. I repainted the porch, replaced the lock he had installed, planted new flowers by the walkway. The house felt like mine again, not just on paper, in my bones. I got a letter from Paul a few months into his sentence. It was short, just said, "You ruined my life." I read it once, folded it up, and dropped it in the trash. Because he was wrong. He ruined his own life. All I did was finish what my father started. And I finally stood up for myself. Not soft. Not anymore.